many of you took the time to encourage 5 people this week? Anybody? That was our challenge. Yeah, I see a few hands. Some of you are just like, I don't know, I didn't put deodorant on today, so I don't know what. That's all right. So we had this challenge last week as part of our series because we're talking about how we use our words, right? We're talking about how you use your words to either give life or take life away. Next week, we're going to start a new series. You got a little card on your seat, and you're like, oh boy, maybe, because you're like, really? No, we're going to do a series on the book of Revelation. That doesn't sound as practical as my words. Well, let me tell you, I'm excited to go through Revelation. We're going to be looking at Revelation from a non-prophetic perspective, okay? So just so we're upfront about it, it's going to be really impactful. So small groups, you're going to be able to dive into that. It's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you join us when we kick that off next week. But as you've been maybe going through some of these, finding ways to encourage people, being part of a small group and using your words, I hope you found that you can really change lives with your words, including your own. Our words are more than just words. According to Scripture, they have the power to give life and to take life away, and that's because of where they come from. Jesus reminds us that our words, he says, a good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. So the question in some ways is really, what are you full of? Like, I'm full of it sometimes. When we complain, when we criticize, those are moments that actually show that our own brokenness. Our words reflect our own brokenness. My chaplaincy supervisor used to say that our words are the best lies that we know. And he wasn't saying that we lie a lot. What he was trying to do is he was trying to tell us that our words are the best expression we can come up with of what it is we're experiencing. And never do our words fully encapsulate what's on our hearts, right? You use a word and you say, this kind of like, I'm trying to communicate how I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing, what I've seen, what I've felt. But it never fully gets there sometimes. And so it's our words that come up from out of our heart and come out, and sometimes they can bring life. And sometimes they can be really destructive. So if you want to kind of catch up on our talk on complaining or on criticism, that's on our website. You can go to our website and find links to that. But today we're going to finish as we talk about the ability to heal and create wholeness with our words. We want to finish with a topic that you might feel like has more to do with other people than with you maybe while you're sitting there. I don't know how you feel, but we're going to talk about this word right here, gossip. I heard that. Yeah, it is going to be one of those weeks. You see, there's a few words actually for gossip in scriptures. You look at like the Hebrew words or the Greek words, which are the two languages that the majority of the Bible were written in. There's a few different words that get used along the way. But if you were to kind of summarize them, they kind of mean this: one who whispers secrets, spreads stories, or is, and I love this term, a scandal monger. A scandal monger, right? Like that's a creative description right there. It's the idea that like a gossiper is someone who takes privileged information and shares it with someone who really has no business knowing that information. Right? The intent often is to build themselves up. Here's what I learned. Here's what I know. Here's where I'm at versus where that person's at. Right? And the intent is often to build ourselves up. In fact, rakil is one of the Hebrew words used for it. It actually means talebearer, in order to build yourself up, in order to garner attention. A talebearer. It also has the connotation of revealing negativity about others. It's not just positive. It's not like, oh, let me tell you how wonderful that person is. Right? It's the idea that gossip is negative. It's negativity about someone. And it's negative without that person's knowing. That's why words like nirgan mean the whisperer, the one who whispers secrets. Because why would you whisper something? You would whisper something so they don't hear you talking about them that way. So a gossiper is a whisperer. I don't want them to know that I'm speaking of them this way because I don't want that confrontation. And sometimes we can mean no harm at all, but gossip does harm regardless of our intent. It doesn't matter if you didn't mean to. Gossip can be destructive. In fact, Solomon, just like Jesus, Solomon connects gossip when he writes, connects gossip to our hearts. And you're going to find as we go through this, Solomon talks about gossip all over Proverbs. It's wild, actually. And Solomon ties gossip straight to our hearts. He says this, he says, rumors, get this description, are dainty morsels that sink deep into one's heart. You know what I mean? Rumors are dainty morsels like, oh, they know something I don't know. I'm going to go listen. I want to know what's going on. Tell me more. How is that exactly? Oh, I want to listen. And there's part of us that, like, we love being on the inside. Like, inside jokes are only funny if you're on the inside. And the same sort of pull for us is like, well, I want to be on the inside of this knowledge. I want to feel like I belong. I want to feel like I know the same stuff that you know about them. Maybe some of you have listened and you know somebody that way. I think probably we all know someone who gossips. And for some of us, it's us. For many of us, it's us. In fact, this is something that is subtle. It sneaks in. It's so easy for us to slip into this that we all universally deal with this and have to think this through at times. In fact, I would argue that gossip is so rampant that it's maybe the most overlooked, most destructive habit in society. Most overlooked, most destructive habit. And it's subtle. Do you remember like playing the game of telephone as a kid? I literally almost had like 12 volunteers come up. I'm still sort of thinking about it, just to play telephone real quick, but I'm not gonna put you through that. Like, do you remember playing telephone? You're like, I'm gonna whisper this to you, and then I want you to whisper to the next person, and to the next person. And by the time it gets to the end, you tell me what you heard, and oh my goodness, that is hysterical. I cannot believe that that's what it became. Right? And it's hilarious because in terms of like a signal and a sender, communication, in terms of communication wave signals, there's supposed to be someone that sends and someone that receives. There's a sender and a receiver. What happens and where things go wrong is when suddenly there's a transmitter inputted in between. Right? Or multiple transmitters and things get relayed down the transmitter line all the way to the receiver. And by the time it gets there, it's no longer what was initially sent most of the time. You could put it this way, you could say gossip that gets transmitted gets tangled. It gets twisted. It gets kind of wrapped around and gets messed up. And gossip, it might be funny when we play telephone and it might feel childish, but it can do damage. Because if I ask you this, how many of you have been hurt by gossip? My guess would be almost everyone in this room. One of the adult, quite frankly, one of the Christian ways we love to kind of disguise gossip is, hey, we need to pray for such and such. let me tell you how much they need prayer. They've been involved in this and that. Right? Right? My parents work at the conference office. If you're not quite sure what that is, it like oversees a lot of churches. That's the best way to put it. And they've literally had to come in and shut down prayer meetings and say, no, sorry, you no longer have the right to prayer meetings because that's not what you're doing. Craig Groeschel puts something great. He says, everything that is said should be true, but not everything true must be said. And so sometimes when we think we come to prayer and we say, well, it's true, they need prayer. I don't think you understand perfectly what, like, gossip doesn't mean it's not true. Gossip can be true. It can be true every single time, and it's still gossip. Because prayer isn't informing God or your friends of what's going on. He already knows. He already knows what's going on. Prayer is a moment to stand in the gap for somebody, not divulge everything and all the details. And so, like, we can become known as gossips, as gossipy, as eager to share, to collect details about other people so we can share them with others. So what do you want to be known for? In another spot, Solomon says this, the tongue can bring death or life to those, or death or life. Those who love to talk will reap the consequences. Do you want to bring death or life with your words? Obviously, and here's the thing, very few people are like, oh, I am going to spread some gossip because I want to hurt some people. We're not wired that way. The vast majority of people want to help, want to provide wholeness. You and I, we want to provide wholeness and healing. We want to be known as positive people that really help people feel excited about living, don't we? But gossip, it hurts every time. And it hurts. There's three people it hurts. I want to kind of go through them real quick. The first person is obvious, is the most obvious, and that's that it hurts the person. It hurts the person being spoken about, right? And that's the obvious one. It hurts the person that you're spreading rumors about, whether those rumors are true or false. It hurts them. It hurts their reputation. It makes people view that person through a certain lens, through your lens, quite honestly. You're controlling their view of that person. Right? Proverbs also says, a troublemaker plants seeds of strife. Gossip separates the best of friends. So if you want to get in and separate friendships, be a gossip. That's what Solomon's saying. Talk about people. And it's funny because sometimes in churches where we have communities of people who really know each other well, right? There are certain sins that we're like, oh, no. We can't have any of that around. But gossip, sure, let's let it fly. And in Christian communities, sometimes things can get a little toxic because gossip has gone rampant. And we're starting to, we try sometimes to color people's views of others with what we say about them. And gossip hurts the person being spoken about. Some of you know this. Some of you have lost a friend. Some of you have felt this. Some of you have stopped hanging out with someone because of something you knew they said about you. It feels like a betrayal of trust, doesn't it? Maybe they shared it because they felt insecure. Maybe they shared it because they wanted to kind of posture themselves in the group. Maybe they shared it because they wanted to be accepted by whoever they were trying to divulge secrets to or information to. Whatever the reason, it felt terrible. But it could be worse, because the second person that gossip hurts is the gossiper, the person speaking. It hurts not only the person being spoken about, it hurts the person speaking, doesn't it? It seems harmless, but we do great damage because we break trust when we gossip. We break trust, not only with the person we're speaking about, but get this, also with the person we're speaking to. Again, Solomon chimes in. It's like he's a wise guy or something. Solomon the wise. When arguing with your neighbor, don't betray another person's secret. Others may accuse you of gossip, and you will never regain your good reputation. Some of you, when I said, we all know a gossip, someone that gossips, some of you thought of an individual person when I said that. Some of you, like a name popped in your head. And the first thing you thought was, oh yeah, I would never tell that person anything that actually mattered to me. Because if I did, it would not stay with them, right? Because you don't trust them. That's the issue. That's where it breaks. It breaks trust. You don't trust them. Trust is at the heart of gossip. No one admires a gossiper. No one looks up and says, oh, I want to be like that when I mature. Gossiping about someone else actually says more about you as a gossip than it does about the person you're talking about. In fact, it says more about what you're trying to do, how you're trying to color things, than it says about them. And so when we say negative things about someone to someone else, what we do is we break trust, because we all wonder, is that how they talk about me when they're with somebody else? Which is the third person that gossip hurts. Gossip hurts the person listening. You're like, I don't gossip, but I listen all the time. Well, there's damage there. There's damage there. Don't miss this. You can't just escape it by saying, well, I don't do it. I just like listen in and collect. I'm a collector. It's not a collection. Right? Solomon says, wrongdoers eagerly listen to gossip. Liars pay close attention to slander. Now, follow this real closely, because if you reverse his logic here and you play the logic backwards, it also means that therefore if you listen to gossip, you're what? That was really quiet. It was like a wrongdoer. If you pay close attention to slander, he's calling you a? Yeah, that's harsh and true. Like, remember, once they start talking to you, they will also start talking about you. And so just listening isn't harmless. It isn't harmless. By allowing them to gossip to you, you're actually encouraging it. They have an audience. That's the reason they're gossiping. They're there for the audience. In fact, the gossip you permit is the gossip you promote. The gossip you permit is the gossip you promote. If you allow people to say something to you, then you are encouraging that viewpoint. You're saying, yeah, I agree. So ask yourself, is this something I promote? See, gossip hurts everyone involved. I think we covered all the bases, right? Gossip hurts the person being gossiped about. It hurts the person gossiping. It hurts the person listening. There's damage everywhere. It's a wreck. It's a war field. So what's the solution? And I want to kind of keep it simple today. I want to keep it straightforward for you. There's two questions that I think you can ask that will almost entirely eliminate gossip from your life. There's two questions, okay? The first is a question you ask someone that is gossiping, and the second is a question that you ask yourself. Okay, so one is an external question to others, one is an internal question to yourself. The first, ask the gossip this: have you spoken to them about this? And I know what you're telling me. I hear you. Have you spoken to them about it? Another way to put this is, why are you telling me? But have you spoken to them about this? You see, Jesus is really clear. He's really clear. In Matthew 18, he says this: if another believer sins against you, go what? privately and point out the offense. If the other person listens and confesses it, you have what? Won that person back. And get this. This is so cool. This is the brilliance of Jesus. This is why, like, even 2,000 years ago, like, we know that relationships were just the same, that they were just complicated, and yet Jesus had this it just so dialed in. Because for Jesus, the goal is here, right here at the end, reconciliation, to bring that person back, to have that relationship restored, to pursue wholeness in community. But the goal of gossip is not that. The goal of gossip is to break relationship. The goal of gossip, even unintentionally, gossip itself will destroy and destruct. It will break things down. And so Jesus says it's not about, further detailing. He doesn't say go and tell everybody else what that person did to you, what that person's up to. He says, no, go privately to them. And then there's a couple other steps after that. You can go look it up, or it's in the small group handout for this week. And he details, here's how you go about it. Here's what you do. It's not about making ourselves feel more knowledgeable, more right. It's about restoring our relationship with someone else. If you're gossiping about someone, you have a broken relationship with them. So some of you, right now, you're thinking like your relationship was broken maybe because of something you said. And maybe the thing you need to hear today is that you need to go and work towards restoration, restoring that relationship that was broken from your words. But asking this question, this encourages someone else to pursue restoration with whoever it is that they have a broken relationship with. Hey, have you talked to them about this? Proverbs 20 says, in Proverbs 20, Solomon says, a gossip goes around telling secrets. So don't hang out with chatterers. I told you there's a lot of different words. I forget which one that is, but there's a lot of different words for gossips in Scripture. And so what Solomon says is sometimes like you need to prompt them towards restoration, and sometimes some won't stop. So there are literally moments when you might have to distance yourself and just stop hanging out and say, no, I can't hang out. Like whenever we're around, all we do is talk about other people in negative ways. And that's not venting, that's gossiping. This, of course, leads to question number 2. You can ask the other person, okay, have you talked to someone about this? Have you talked to them directly about what it is that you're telling me? You can also ask yourself if you're like, oh, I really want to share this. I want to share this. I need to share this. Can I please share this? And in that moment, this is the question that you ask yourself. You ask yourself, would I want this to be said about me? Would I want what's about to come out of my mouth to be said about me? It ties in with the golden rule, right? Jesus tells us, do unto others like you would want them to do to you. But it's not just our doing, it's not just our actions, it's also our words. Our words are a doing in and of themselves. Would you want what you say about others to be said about you? Again, Solomon chimes in, and to be honest, in preparing this, I thought, like, when I get to heaven, I want to have a talk with Solomon, and I want to be like, dude, what happened? Like, because you kept coming back to this. Solomon again chimes in. He says this, watch your tongue and keep your mouth shut, and you will stay out of trouble. I love that, right? All right, say it with me. Come on. Watch your tongue, keep your mouth shut, and you will stay out of trouble. One more time. Watch your tongue, keep your mouth shut, and you will stay out of trouble. You memorized the memory verse today. Congratulations. Right? So he's really blunt about this. He's not beating around the bush. He's like, listen, keep your mouth shut. Like, that's where your trouble's coming from, is it keeps opening. Jesus, remember, he tells us that it comes out of an overflow of our hearts. Solomon tells us that our gossip comes and it sinks deep into our hearts. Our hearts are the issue here. We find ourselves wanting to gossip about other people, to share negative things about them because we have this one attitude. We want to make sure other people know that I'm strong and that person over there is weak. That's really where it comes from. In the end, most gossip can be boiled down to this one idea. Hey, I want you to know how weak they are. Don't I look good? I want you to know that they are deficient. I want you to know that they are broken. I'm not. Except you are. Because so am I. We're all broken. We're all in need of some humble pie. We all have a heart that's troubled. So gossip, you see, gossip claims, hey, my strength shows that they are weak. It's my spiritual gift. My strength shows how weak everybody else is. And gossip, that's what gossip does. It says, I'm great, they are failing. Can you believe the ways they are failing? I am strong, they are weak. But here's the thing, we have a Jesus, we have good news, and the gospel tells us the complete opposite. The gospel proclaims that my weakness shows that God is strong. And that's a total reversal of what gossip tries to do. Gossip, instead of trying to put others down, the gospel says, listen, you be vulnerable, you show your weakness, you serve, you give your life for others, because in your weakness, Jesus is strong. In your weak, desperate moment, when you can't figure it out, when things are just convoluted, and if you wanted to be really honest, life is just terrible right now. It feels difficult. In that weak moment, you can know that, hey, you know what? In my weakness, Jesus is strong. He can get me through it. I don't need complaining. I don't need to criticize someone else. I don't need to gossip about someone else to feel better about myself. I can just understand that, hey, it's okay for me to be weak. I want you to know that I'm weak, that I'm broken. And I'm not proud of it, but what I am proud of is that God is my strength. Conversation over. That's all I need. I don't need someone else to be weak. I'm weak. My strength comes from the Lord. When we recognize in that moment who we really are. And at the same time, simultaneously realize that the creator of the universe loves you anyway, died for you. It changes everything. One last illustration that I think maybe helps drive the point home. James talks about the tongue this way. He says, the tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. It's really encouraging, isn't it? That's some strong language. And I thought about I had some crazy thoughts on this. Buckets of gasoline and buckets of water. In the end, I just want you to use your holy imagination with me, your sacred imaginations. Every time you walk into any conversation, every time you get up in the morning, every time you roll into work, every time you go home to your family, when you come to church, you come carrying 2 buckets. Right now, you sit in your seat with 2 buckets. And as you come across things, as you come across conversations, you have the choice of how to use those 2 buckets. Because our tongues are a fire and they can do significant damage. 2 years ago, the Bobcat fire came really close to Monrovia. It came up within a mile of where we lived. And I remember watching just the massive destruction. We could see flames day and night for like 2 weeks. We could see the plane dropping the red chemical goo over everything. We could hear the helicopters going down into a reservoir nearby, grabbing water to take over and drop on the fire. Like, I know the destruction. They still have not opened the canyon above because it all was so devastated. But that fire started small. It started with something. If there had been someone to be there, they could have had a choice as to what it was that they were going to do, how they were going to interact with that fire. They could be like, I love fire. Some of you were at the beach last week, and I know how much you love fire. Right? Some of us were a little close to it, Robert. As we made dinner. They could take a bucket of gas and they could toss it on that fire. They could watch it explode. They could watch it burn. They could watch it spread. They could encourage it because they have that bucket of gasoline. And here's the thing. When you come across in your life, when you come across someone else, you have a bucket of gasoline. And if they are talking about someone else, you can encourage it. You can stoke it. You can dump your bucket of gasoline and you can just get it roaring. You can be like, oh, I have had a similar experience with that person. I am with you in this. Let's talk terribly about them because I feel the same way. Let's watch it burn. And it could spread. According to Scripture, according to Jesus, according to Solomon, it can do damage. It can tear friendships apart. It can tear communities apart. But the other bucket that you carry is a bucket of water. It's a bucket of water. You could take that bucket of water and you could say, have you talked to them about this? You could take the bucket of water and say, why are you telling me? You could take the bucket of water, you could say, would you want somebody else saying that about you? You could take the bucket of water, you could say, you know what? I love that person. Let me tell you the reasons why I think they're amazing. That kind of negativity, it's not really welcome here. You have a choice. You have 2 buckets. And it doesn't matter what they did to you. It doesn't matter your feelings about that person. You have 2 buckets at all times, and you choose which bucket you're going to use. Your gasoline or your water. And you can choose to douse that fire. You know what happens when a fire has been doused? It makes room for some incredible new growth. It makes some space for it. It kind of it clears the area, it makes sure it's not hot. And what happens is naturally new growth starts. It's really cool. New growth bounces back because God is in the business of making us grow, of helping us to grow. So here's my challenge for you this week. I want you to talk about this. How would you define gossip? How would you define gossip? Why is it so easy to fall into? Is it easy for you? Is it harder for you? In a moment of honesty, I think sometimes it's easy for all of us. And then for your walk, here's what I want to challenge you to do this week. Instead of talking negatively about someone, I want you to talk positively to 5 people this week. You're like, 5? I could have seen that coming again, right? That's right, 5 letters last week. Talk positively to 5 people this week. Sender, receiver, no transmitters. If you want, it can be through more letters. It could be directly. It could be through a text message. It could just be speaking to someone. Listen, we restocked the letters. There's more letters. This is another weekend for the letters of kindness. So you can drop those off. If you brought them, you can write some more. We're collecting letters of kindness for hospice patients over at Devoted Healthcare here in Claremont. You could drop them in a box and encourage them. Or you could send a letter to your next door neighbor that you, if we're going to be honest, are not real thrilled with, but you could let them know how nice their lawn looks, or whatever you need to focus on. That's a nice, concrete job. I don't know what it is, right? Or you could send it to a friend, or you could send it to a family member. Or maybe you need to start talking positively to someone that you've previously been talking about. But find 5 people. 5 people to talk to. Encourage them and build them up, because our words can bring life. And I don't want to focus on all the negativity. I don't want to focus on the destruction, because in the end, our words could change the world. And we live in a world that loves to use words to destroy. We flip on the news and somebody's trying to destroy someone else, and someone's talking bad about some other party or some other person or some other whatever it is. We flip things through and it's all this negativity. Here's the thing, you don't have to do that, neither do I. We can be agents of change just through our words, just through the way that we talk and encourage others.